be getting some kind of notification. I'm saying live, buddy. How are you?
Good, we are live.
Awesome, that's fantastic. Thanks, everybody. Carl's come back from his business trip. He left me to do Sunday all by myself. Oh my gosh. And I managed to do it without him for an hour. I actually thought that I'd only go on for about 10, 15 minutes, mate. I actually thought. Okay, so we've got Simon. Good morning, Simon. And we've got Jimmy T. And they were kind enough to be with me on Sunday for a little while, and they pop on the channel and say g'day regularly.
Great.
So we're happy to have Carl back.
Happy to be back.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what are we going to kick things off with? We're going to start, I think, with you have to, I can't remember.
So I guess the last, however long it goes back, 6, 7, 8, 6, 8, 7 programs we've done. We've talked about 25 great riffs, and in conclusion, we've pretty much for myself come to the end of the 25. There's about 3 left, and then we just started to talk about just I mentioned that the last 3 were from the Tattoo You album, and you mentioned how great an album it was, and I've got a special affinity for it, so why not review it? As far as just a body of work, some of the background to the album, where they're at that time, and just going through the album as far as gems, nuggets, B-sides, outtakes. What your thoughts were. It's very interesting.
Okay. I suppose the first thought that comes to mind with that album for me, obviously, is the kickoff single, "Start Me Up."
A rock anthem, monster song. And who knew it was a reggae song to begin with?
Are there any outtakes of the reggae version on YouTube, or have you heard any? You've got an extensive record collection. Is there anything available?
Well, I don't have too many Stones bootlegs, but I know there are on YouTube early versions of "Start Me Up" called "Never Stop," which was, as Keith would say, the infancy of the song as it started out as just a baby. And so, like a lot of these songs, we get to fortunately listen to the final product, but like selling a house, it's a long way from a sold sign. It starts out as a journey. So yeah, that song was an evolved piece of work.
Well, Jimmy T's thrown in a comment here saying that he didn't know that "Start Me Up" had been lying around from earlier sessions.
From the Some Girls sessions.
For some strange reason, I always thought for the longest of times that went back to 1972, 73.
No.
Earlier.
No, just 2 songs from that time, which was "Waiting on a Friend" and "Tops." And it as it turned out, I never knew this, but basically the Stones really wanted to tour. I guess all the fans are saying, what's going on? Emotional Rescue wasn't enough body of work or enough quality to tour behind. And Chris Kimsey said, listen, I'm working with you guys. Let's go into the vaults They said, sure. And he spent 3 months just sifting through backing tracks, outtakes, instrumentals, and said, do you realise how many gems you guys have got? And at that particular time, Mick said, okay, let's have a listen, and basically rewrote some lyrics and melodies and reworked some songs. And as it turned out, a couple of songs Mick Taylor and Wayne Perkins got credit for.
So do you think there's any credence behind the rumours that Ronnie Wood didn't rate Start Me Up? He was critical of that, of the version that we have on Start Me Up.
I've never read anything like that. I don't know anything about it. Don't know.
The Stones guitarist retains a slightly. I've got some information here saying that, and despite the doubts raised by Ron Wood, Keith was clearly responsible for this, and Jagger would confirm that in 1995. That's Start Me Up played an open G. Apparently, Ronnie had some
reservations.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I don't know. I can never get sick of listening to it, and I mean, it's such a great song. Looking back, how many times do they start their concerts with that song? It's you know, they're prior to that was, you know, your Brown Sugar or your Satisfaction, but Start Me Up became pretty much their signature. You know, getting the crowd going, starting this concert off. That's how big a song it was.
Yeah, Under My Thumb was another tour opener as well. But you know, that bathroom reverb that they've got going and playing through those Mesa Boogie amps. I think we discussed this before in a couple of shows. You know, the great thing about the Stones is that they don't have pedals. They just plug straight into the amps, and if there's any effects, obviously that's been added through the desk. And if they're playing live, if there's any effects, it's been added by the sound desk, isn't it? But generally speaking, it's just straight into the amp.
And excuse me, what an incredible recording! So much air around the guitar, so much air around the drums. They really put them in a nice sized room, and you know, there's a bit of volume there, isn't there? And you know, just really hit the mark. Hit the mark, and and not to mention a great video too.
Yeah, well, yeah, it just shows them in party mode, just having fun.
Aerobics workout. I'm going to point out too. As a kid, you know, growing up, and you know, like yourself, looking at album covers and being a little bit mesmerised and curious, and being from New Zealand and being part of the Māori culture. Always was just intrigued by the tattoos. You know, I always thought there was a bit of a cool Kiwi connection there. So just loved the album cover too.
Yeah, I can't rate that song. Yeah, I've mentioned it a few times. You know, hearing that on the radio, that song and those first chords, and push biking, you know, to go and pick up the 45, because I think I only had about $4, you know, and how much was the 45 then? A couple of dollars?
I don't know, yeah.
And just playing. I don't even know what song was on
the B-side.
The B-side. Do you know?
I'll find out. Waiting on a sorry. Slow Song. No Use in Crying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the other interesting thing is, we've talked about this before, as far as a song sequence and the how magical it is, where they have certain songs that flow like a key or a tempo. So one song is one side's a rock side, the other side's a ballad side, and it works.
What do you think about the lyrics to that song? Typical Stones edgy lyrics.
Yeah. You're talking about some old guy that,
Well, if you start me up, I'll never stop. Kick me on the starter. Give it all you've got. You make a dead man come. You know. Yeah. Only the Stones can get away with lyrics like that.
Very clever.
I didn't even know what half the words were when I was listening to it and the album first came out. It was just that groove that I loved.
Mm-hmm. Here we go. So, Start Me Up took about 6 hours to record. If they played all the right chords in the right time, went to the chorus at the right time, got to the middle 8 together, that was a master. It was like, oh, wow, don't forget, they would never sit down and work out a song. They would just jam it, and the song would evolve out of that. That's their magic.
Well, Simon says here in the chat that he's been playing that song in his band for years.
Yeah.
Simon, a couple of shows ago, Carl and I were talking about the Open G tuning and how important that is to the Stones. And I didn't know anything about Open G until, relatively, 20 years after I found out that Open G tuning existed. Did you play that always in Open G, or did you guys play that in standard tuning? I'd be intrigued to find out. And then also he makes a comment here about the bathroom reverb. Yeah, and that's a key indicator for a Stones nut. That's going to unlock the padlock, isn't it? That bathroom reverb. Yeah. So Simon's been playing that in Open G.
Cool.
Wow.
Yeah, the infectious thump to the song was achieved using mixer Bob Clearmountain's famed bathroom reverb, a process involving the recording of some of the song's vocal and drum tracks with a mic'd speaker in the bathroom of the Power Station recording studio in New York City. Wow.
Yeah.
And that was they used to do that with the Motown recordings too, and some of the Sun recordings. So just, yeah, what a great team job, great team effort.
What other famous recordings do we know that were recorded with Bob Clearmountain's bathroom reverb? Is there anything that comes to mind?
I don't know much about him.
Maybe the guys in the chat might want to chip something if they know anything.
Selection of his work as a mix engineer. I'll just go through some quick ones here. Roxy Music, Avalon, Huey Lewis and the News, Sports, David Bowie, Let's Dance. Wow. Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA. That makes sense. Bryan Adams, Hall & Oates.
Yeah, Born in the USA. Yeah. That's
similar.
Yep.
INXS, Kick. Wow.
That's a great album.
Yeah. So he obviously knows what he's doing. He knows.
So that would have been something that the Stones deliberately, when they asked him to be one of the sound engineers, clearly they knew what sound effect he was going to bring to the production. So that was something that they were looking for.
I don't know. I don't think so. I think clearly how Keith likes it. They jam a lot. They get this little, this groove going, but they are at the mercy, I think, of your Chris Kimseys and your the Johns and the Jimmy Millers and the Bob Clearmountains. I think behind the scenes, we've got a lot for them to thank too. The producers, the engineers, the mixers, because that's another world altogether. I mean, you can be talented, write a song, play the guitar, but finishing touches and echo and reverb and room placement, instrument placement, that's the other side of the coin, I think.
So in a way, they're sort of listening to it as a fan would. So they're recording this music, they're going through the production process, and then the engineers are doing what they do, and then they're sitting back listening to it and going, wow,
Yep.
this sounds great. We like this.
Yeah, because a lot of these engineers don't even play instruments, but they've got very clever ears when it comes to vision or placement or a final result. And a lot of it's, I mean, you've read Beatles books, and I've listened to some Beatles stuff. A lot of it was based on luck too, just a particular day, a groove, a feel, and sometimes it just takes one take, and you push play, then you push stop, and that's it. It's magic.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that, because I think at the end of the day, you may be articulate enough to say we're going to have, the drum over here, and we're going to use this effect.
Yeah.
But we know ourselves that if you go and plug your guitar in one day to the same settings, and then another week you plug it in, it sounds different, because the day is different, the temperature is different. And we sit there and go, why isn't this sounding as good as it sounded last week?
Yep. There's been situations where a couple of things, where they've recorded a song that sounds really good, and they wanted it to sound better, so they record it the following day, multiple takes. They cannot get that same groove. They've had to go back to the original track. It's like, that was the one. And what a lot happened in the 80s with the drum sound, synthesizers, the advent of digital recordings and stuff, is you have overproduction where all of a sudden the producers were doing, and engineers are doing too much, getting too clever, and actually killing the air, killing the groove. So, yeah. Good point.
Hey, before we go on, I just want to answer. So maybe well, I'm sure you'll know the answer to this question, but Simon's saying didn't realise Sonny Rollins was on Tattoo You.
Saxophone, yeah.
So there's a couple of songs there that have got sax. What songs would they be, or what song would it be?
Waiting on a Friend and
Waiting on a Friend, yeah.
And Slave. Yeah, and they had some good. The Sonny Rollins touch was pretty incredible. Obviously,
yes, Sonny Rollins and Mike Carabello. Yeah, okay, wow. See, again, you can be forgiven if you hear sax and you just think of who? The Texan.
Yep.
Oh, Bobby Keys.
Well, that 81 tour, they had another black saxophone player. Obviously, Sonny Rollins wasn't touring.
Yes.
He was phenomenal.
Yeah. He's on that that DVD. Hampton, yeah. Yeah. He plays a good horn, man. Who is that guy? Someone will know.
Really good. So yeah. No. I
Why couldn't Sonny tour? Was he smacked up then?
I don't know much about those jazz guys. All I know is that they can perform wonders.
Yeah, they were generally speaking, though, one take guys, eh? They didn't want to do it twice.
No. And the way that just, we'll talk about the song a bit later, but the way that sax just wails and just carries on through the sky is just incredible. But yeah, like I said, so that album, obviously there was some thought behind there. The first side is all rock. So Hang Fire.
Well, another great song.
And that you couldn't help but relate that song to what we talked about before with the Some Girls, the that axis, the late 70s, early 80s of the punk movement, the Ramones and Generation X and a lot of that New York. See, that I think the Stones really liked New York. They loved New York as far as the music scene, the studios. Mick Jagger loved the clubs. It was the in scene to be as far as who was who and where was who and who was where. And so they would have been exposing themselves to a lot of that music, probably going down to some of those little hole-in-the-wall clubs and watching some young band. And so Hang Fire's got a bit of a punky edge, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, not bad. And that's we see Keith using that delay pedal there, which was pretty interesting because obviously carrying on from Start Me Up with the reverb, you've got the reverb effect, and now you've got another song, Bang, that's continuing that eerie atmospheric sound, which you don't normally associate with Keith Richards. Every other album, it's more of a crunch tone that you're getting from him, aren't you?
Yeah. And we can pretty much say they're pretty much locked into that Fender sound, eh? Quite clear, a little bit bright.
Well, they were using Mesa Boogies, mate.
Mm.
So and I've played through a Mesa, but that was a long time ago. But the Mesa Boogie, when I was playing, that was Ben Glass's Mesa Boogie, but that was all rigged up for. He was playing progressive metal out of it, and I can't recall ever putting it on a clean setting.
Mm.
But I understand, weren't they modelled after Fenders?
Much, I think the guy that designed them or owned the company had previously worked for Fender, so there was definitely an American connection.
So the name of that black guy that's playing sax on that tour,
yeah,
Simon's answered the Carl Dennison is the guy's name. So appreciate you giving us that information. Yeah, but again, I just want to throw this in, mate. So who's told Keith to use a delay pedal? Is that something that, does he just walk into a music store and grab a pedal, or do studios have all these pedals and he just grabs them and takes them into the room where they're jamming, and does he plug them in and say, oh yeah, this sounds good?
I just think that they're entering into a different time, a bit more modern, and they would just, in order to not necessarily compete with other bands, but to remain kind of fresh, they would have to freshen up their sound with a few different techniques, which they do so well. Hence the Sonny Rollins sax, different effects, pedals, reverb, but in all in its entirety, they still are great at keeping it all pretty simple too.
And so they recorded that. So okay. Some of the information I've got here, mate, tells me that there's versions of that song going back to 77, 79, and then obviously 81.
This is Hang Fire?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Recorded in France, October, December. So they were recording in France at the Path Marconi Studios. So I didn't know that either. I thought that was definitely, well, again, you're different versions. So who knows? But certainly that's an 81 or an 80s song, isn't it?
Yeah, and once again, clever lyrics. I mean, he doesn't recognise the city, London, and no one's working, and different, probably a socialist government and handouts, and quite very clever band.
81 was Margaret Thatcher. So
probably just started, or
yeah, she was there in 79. She got voted in 79. So she was taking on the miners in Scargill, and there was a lot of SHIT going down in an industrial sense. And then you had the Falklands War.
Yeah.
When was that? 81, 82?
In this sweet old country where I come from, nothing ever gets done. Hang fire.
Hang fire.
The hang fire is a what do they call it? Colloquialism or an expression. I've never really heard it, but it's used. So yeah.
Oh, really? What is it in English or a North American term? I can't say I've. Oh, hang fire. Yeah. Of course, like hang fire. It's like hold on.
Hold on. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hang fire, man.
It's probably the military.
Yeah. Hold on. Don't drop the bomb.
Being paid and taking action. A firearm. Between the triggering of a firearm. Yeah.
So Simon said Meza Boogie started out by Randall Smith, who started a small repair shop modifying Fender amps, and his early customers included Keith. So yeah, wow. Clearly. So Keith probably took some rooted Fenders in there and said, fix these. And he said, yeah.
Nothing wrong with, trying a different sound. And I think to this day, probably, you've mentioned Keith owns quite a few guitars. Let's not forget he probably owns quite a few amps. He's bound to have some Mesa Boogies in his collection.
Oh, yeah. He probably still has them, yeah. But there's dozens of photographs of him with a variety of the Mesa Boogies. They became famous, I think, because they had a 5-band or a 6-band graphic equalizer on them, which was pretty unusual for an amp.
Cutting edge at that time.
Well, yeah, and the like John Petrucci, who's the guitarist from Dream Theater, he's been playing Mesas all his life, and I think they're up to Mark 8s or 9s for him. They still have that graphic equalizer, so and it has an effect, but they're not cheap amps.
Wow, I can imagine. Yeah, and Carlos Santana was a major expander of them, wasn't he? You loved them?
Yeah. They were a dream amp.
Like a Mercedes-Benz or a BMW style amp, very, very high end, very yeah.
Well, Simon's hit the nail on the head. It's a combination of a Princeton with a Bassman. So that we all know what a Princeton sounds like, and we all know what a Bassman sounds like cranked. So
Princeton's super clean, eh?
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, lovely, beautiful. Yeah, takes pedals really well.
Bassman has a lot of obviously bottom end.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Talking about amps, though, one amp that comes to my mind that I've never thought about until when you mentioned it before. Have you ever seen Keith play through Marshalls?
Never. Not that I.
Wow.
Not that I know of.
So I can't say I've seen anything with him with a Marshall.
I'll just Google it.
Interesting.
But talking about bottom end.
Yeah.
Next song, Slave. Couple of things.
Yeah.
Here's the Stones doing what they do so well. A really incredible riff, a simple riff, and the most basic of chords. Unbelievable. How do they do it? But that recording, that amp must be pretty loud. It's a pretty crunchy sound, isn't it? Here we go. Did Keith Richards ever play a Marshall? Discussion board. Hi, when I think of Keith, I think of Ampeg amps or Fender Tweed or Princeton. However, Marshall was one of the most popular rock amps available and used by many famous artists, blah, blah, blah. Sure, Keith considered Marshall one time or another. Did he ever record or play with one? If not, why do you think he rejected it? I read an interview, he said somewhere he plays Fender amps because he uses Fender guitars.
Yeah.
That's it. That's a...
So Sonny played sax on Slave too.
What's that, sorry?
Sonny played sax on Slave as well.
Yeah, they're the two songs he played sax on. Nice touches. There are clips from the Some Girls album videos with Marshalls in the back line. And I think that circus show he was playing through a Marshall. Rolling Stones Rock and Roll Circus.
Oh, that would have been Jethro Tull's rig or something, or who else, or the Who's.
Possibly.
Yeah. But Jimmy T's saying he has no recollection of Keith and Marshalls. I don't. And Mez's have an extra gain stage for the guitar input. That's it. Yeah.
These two sentences pretty much sum it up. As already stated, he can be seen clearly playing through Marshalls at the Rock and Roll Circus. I have read comments from him that he wasn't a big fan of them, but to come to that conclusion, I'm sure he must have tried them. So
he's tried them early on because Rock and Roll Circus was 68, 69.
Yep. And that showed efficient. They would have had just one rig set up.
Yep. And he said, no, I'll go back to my Ampegs.
Yeah, because Your Blues would have been the famous combination of Eric Clapton's 335 with the Marshall, and then your buddy John Lennon's Casino with the Marshall, I think, or was it a Fender amp? And then obviously Keith playing bass, but we had the Who, Jethro Tull, Tony Iommi, Taj Mahal.
Simon's saying a guy on the thread says he had a JTM 45 on the Steel Wheels tour. So that's interesting because that's similar to the album that Clapton used on the Beano album.
That's just a little amp? Is that right?
Yeah, 212.
Wow. Nope, I'm Googling Keith Richards Marshall amps. Nothing comes up.
Wow.
Nothing.
So did you hear the first version of Slave back in 75? Have you heard any of those versions?
Long time ago, I had a friend in Texas who was a huge Keith nut. He had all the bootlegs.
Wow.
I mean, that song "Let It Bleed," the original version was Keith on vocals. There's some incredible outtakes and bootlegs of a lot of those songs. Amazing.
You know how we on the Johnny Bean show we talk about how Eddie Van Halen has a vault full of recordings, and it's well known. It's not an urban myth of all these songs that they've just, because obviously he's a musician, and fans salivate about the idea of going through this vault and just releasing some of the stuff, or which hopefully will happen. Clearly the Stones have all this stuff too, don't they?
Absolutely. I was just blown away just reading that little brief bio. Keith loves to tour. The fans demand it. Mick's got ants in his pants. It's 81. The last tour is really small, 78. 75 was the last big tour, so 5 and 1, 6 years. What have we got, guys? They had an album to tour behind. Well,
you know how Neil Young, for example, is releasing. He's been doing it for the last 10 years. He's just releasing all this stuff that was recorded, and it's just magic, man. He just released an album of him playing live in 1975, playing Tonight's the Night,
Okay.
and it's just you guys need to check it out. It's on Spotify. It's brilliant. Anyway, the point that I want to say is, I wonder when the Stones are going to get to a point where they're going to say, well, look, because we're all going to buy it or listen to it, aren't we?
Yeah. I think the Stones are a little bit different, though. I think they're a bit micromanaging. I think that the Glimmer Twins really have a vice grip on all their material. They're very particular about it.
So they don't want to release 4 versions of a song that they were working on in 1975 that they released in 81 because they like the 1981 version.
They're not that sort of band where Neil Young and Bob Dylan are very raw singer-songwriting. I think they don't really, they're more earthy, where the Stones, it took, 30 years for them to release Rolling Stones Rock and Roll Circus? It was there to be released, and they just did not like the performance. They were very, not vain, but very proud of their sound, and they didn't want to be upstaged, and they were upstaged.
Well, Simon's chimed in with another great comment saying, like Prince, and we know, Prince, who famously had a massive vault. A band like the Stones, who jam everything, must have loads of archival material. So, hopefully one day, we can, fans want to listen to that, So hopefully they might get a little bit softer and say, well, look, we'll give it to you guys.
There would definitely be some, well, we're fortunate the last 5 years, and thank you for borrowing some DVDs off you, some, the Hampton and Live at Leeds and various shows that they've had in the vaults that they haven't released, that's now available on DVD, and live at the Checkerboard Lounge, the full concert, and with the Blues guys. So, part of me, it's quite funny because Keith, on one hand, is pretty raw and pretty rough and rugged, and on the other hand, he's very much particular about what gets released.
Because he's famously on board for saying, that Jumping Jack Flash, he was surprised that they released Jumping Jack Flash so quickly because he thought they could have done some more work to it. But again, he's saying, well, look, that's one version of the song, and 40 years later, we're playing that song live, so we're polishing it anyway without, having that recorded version, because it gets to a point, when do you say, this is it? Right. I've never been that lucky enough to be in a recording studio to be in that position, but yeah.
Well, that's a good point. You got a song with 3 chords, maybe a bridge where you add an extra chord or tempo change. Probably gets pretty boring. So the live shows, they can mix it up a little bit. We've seen that with Satisfaction. We've seen that with Midnight Rambler.
Jumping Jack Flash, they've got a real fast version on that flashlight, Flashpoint, and then Under My Thumb's a different tempo, yeah.
So that I guess in a way we're privileged that there is some stuff out there, but being fans, like you say, we wish we could have more.
Well, Jimmy T's saying, so how many vault pieces are really in need of considerable further work before they really cut into it? Don't know. I don't know, mate. I don't know.
Because I knew a couple of guys who were from California, lived in Texas, and they made their living selling Stones bootlegs. And I've listened to there's a lot of stuff out there, and it's not official. And if they got caught selling it, they'd be in trouble. But there's some pretty interesting things, especially around the Let It Bleed Beggars Banquet period too.
So Simon's saying that it might be less than what we think because it could just be hours of aimless jamming while waiting for someone. Yeah, but I'd listen to it.
Yeah.
You know. No, but you're right though about the bootlegs. So how many bootlegs do you think are out there?
Oh, there's upwards of hundreds maybe. I'm not sure. I mean, forget about the live shows. There's definitely outtakes of the studio work.
And these guys were making a living on that. Wow.
Well, in addition to other things.
Yeah.
Or bootlegs of a lot of other different bands, but the big. Well, he was such a Stones fan. His music shop was called Shattered Records.
Shattered.
Yeah. So yeah. No, I've always wondered. I always wanted to dig deeper into Bolt, and I just came to the point where I was just, you know what, I'm just be grateful for the albums. There's a few surprises here and there, but it's just not that sort of band, unfortunately. You know, they're very much a not, for lack of a better word, not a corporate band, but they're a major machine. And bootlegs and outtakes would be not necessarily a weakness, but you know, they'd definitely be controlled. Because they do, you know, they get major advances, and they, you know, they've got 5 albums to do in 5 years or 10 years, and there's probably a lot of the stuff they can't control either. I know Alan Klein helped the show a little bit. When he had Abco Records, there's a famous couple of albums called Hot Rocks, Big Phase, Big Cookies and something. And there was some pretty neat early stuff that wasn't on records till it came out in 72.
Well, that Hot Rocks album I see often on
phase
on when people rate Stones albums in the top 3. A lot of people will pick that as 1, 2, or 3 because it's a good cross section of that early stuff.
Absolutely. Here we go. I just brought it up. So, first time, you know, that the mainstream audience would have heard things like Out of Time, because it only came out on the British version of Aftermath, Sitting on a Fence, Dandelion, We Love You, which was released originally as a single, which is an amazing song with Brian Jones on the Mellotron.
Yep.
Child of the Moon, which is the B-side, the Jumping Jack Flash. And side 4 is just a whole long list of B-sides and earthy, raw Stone songs before they became famous. What to Do, Money, Come On, Fortune Teller, Poison Ivy, Bye Bye Johnny, I Can't Be Satisfied. Here's my favourite, which was on the, I think it was on Goodfellas or Casino, Long, Long While. The B-side to Paint It Black. It's a lot of B-sides.
So who was instrumental in picking those songs? Do you think?
Alan Klein owned the rights to them all.
So Klein would have picked them?
Yeah, he did all us a bit of a favour, even though he was a rogue businessman. But if you were a true Stones fan, you would have owned all the 45s and had the B-sides. You wouldn't have to worry about it. But if you were maybe someone who just discovered the Stones in the late 60s, early 70s, here was everything on a complete album. That was official.
Yeah, and I think that's certainly what that album was geared for, because if you look at that first tour, well, not the first tour, the 68 tour, and the momentum, because that was huge, wasn't it? You know, and you had people who had grown up with the Stones, but there was a whole group of people that just got caught up in that whole scene. Probably didn't have those early albums.
Not at all. No, you would have had a lot of people. 45s were huge, so you would have had a lot of people, especially people coming out of university who were going to parties, and Jumping Jack Flash or Honky Tonk Woman was the big song.
And he knew that that album was going to sell, because what were the figures for the live album that he released, Get Your Yayas? What, you know, that was selling truckloads a week, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, it was a big party album.
So he knew that there was a market there, because, oh look, we've got this album moving how many units?
Yep.
Let's give them some new music.
Yeah.
On because that was that three albums?
Hot Rock? It was a double. It was a
double album.
4 sides.
Four sides, yeah. Because I remember having that on cassette tape.
Yeah.
And wearing out was Midnight Rambler on there?
Well, there was another album that came around about the same time.
I need to.
No.
I need to get some information. I need to get it up and pick the song. So that's still available. Well, it's obviously in digital.
The good album, the other one that was very similar to that, was called Hot Rocks 1964 to 71. And you are right, it did have Midnight Rambler live. But this was more of just a compilation, where the other one had a lot of B-sides and outtakes and stuff. But yeah.
More Hot Rocks, big hits, The Stones in Mono, Metamorphosis, Made in the Shade, Sucking in the 70s, my gosh. Yeah, so the digital on Spotify, that's More Hot Rocks. That's got Poison Ivy version 1, Come On Money, Bye Bye Johnny, Poison Ivy version 2, I Can't Be Satisfied, Long Long While.
Yeah.
Well, Fortune Teller. Can you do me a favor? How many units did that sell? Have you got that information? Big Hits and Phased Cookies. Have you got that information? It'd be interesting to see.
500,000.
Wow.
Certified gold. And Stone's got no money for that.
No, it all went to Klein.
Yeah.
As Simon correctly pointed out, you know, he was the guy that had the Beatles and the Stones in one pocket. In his left-hand pocket, he had the Beatles, and the right-hand pocket, he had the Stones. He was the man in the middle, man.
And here at Hot Rocks sold 125,000 units. France, United Kingdom, double platinum, 600,000. United States, 12-fold platinum, 6 million.
Wow. So we've just answered our question. So clearly, you know, these young cats were just, yeah.
Well, a double album, good value for money, a lot of body of work, and the Stones were seething. No control. So that's a subject altogether about the 66 record deal. We can talk about that later.
Oh, yeah. But we'll talk about that nicely.
Yeah. So just wrapping up, just the last couple of songs. So Slave, as we know, and we've talked about amps, is a testimony to not only how simple they can use chords but make it great sound. And we talk about Sonny Rollins. But Little TNA, Keith singing.
Love it.
Love it. Isn't it great?
Love it.
He's my little rock and roll.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
and also just a credit to Charlie's snappy drumming and Bill Wyman's great swinging bass playing.
Yeah. Just no, love it. Love it. Again, he's playing open G with his 57 tally, playing through that mezza. You know, he's got that MXR pedal going. Ronnie Wood's there. Yeah. Interesting how he could take that open G tuning, you know, that was so dominant through the 70s and just smack it bang into the into the early 1980s too. It just fitted in. It didn't seem out of place at all, did it?
Well, we've talked about this before, and you bring up a really good point. When you hear it, it's distinctively Rolling Stones. The only time that someone challenged that, 81, 90, 91, 10 years later, was Black Crowes. So prior to Black Crowes, it was distinctively Rolling Stones. No one else.
Well, yeah. Well, I remember I was I remember hearing the it wasn't Moneymaker, it was dun, 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 dun. Anyway, the song will come to. I remember hearing that on the radio, and I knew straight away that was
Twice as hard.
Twice as hard as the first. Yeah, I knew, man, straight away that was the Stones. You know. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think so. Opening track, distinctive Stones, open G, Hang Fire, straight tuning, Slave, straight tuning, Little TNA, back to open G. Beautiful.
And they follow that textural sound landscape right through their albums, and it began with Beggars Banquet, and it continued obviously all the way through that. So it's not just songs you're listening to. It's an album. It's you're sitting down. You're supposed to sit down, grab a cup of tea, turn your phones off, turn your iPad off, and listen to a whole album. I wonder how often we actually do that. Even today, are we listening to albums like we used to?
Well, I'm guilty. I'm really guilty. Your buddy Walter McEwen or Walter Puen, he put on Facebook 100 years ago. I never heard the song in my life. And it's not it's a song that can grow on you, but it's just another little Stones forgotten gem. And you listen to it, it's like, this is pretty cool. Different tempos, Mick Taylor coming out of nowhere.
Yeah. I'm going to have to add a comment to Walter and thank him for that. I've asked him dozens of times if he wants to come on to the show. He's a strange guy. He just doesn't respond.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Maybe he works night shift.
Well, he's just happy posting links and making comments, and that's great. But when you read the comments that he puts on the group, it's like, wow, man, you should be talking.
Yeah.
Maybe he doesn't like crowds. Maybe he doesn't like a crowd of 5 or 6 people that watch us.
Yeah. No, you bring up a good point that that there's definitely a lot of thought into the track listing, the song listing, and how clever we just figured that out just now. Open G, standard, open G. So, yeah. And what's the final song is? Well, final 2 songs. Back to standard tuning, Black Limousine. They can't help. They just can't help themselves. They've got to throw a blues song in there, don't they? Just plug my phone.
Yeah. Is that that's not a love song or to Jerry Hall, is it?
I'm not sure. It's a song that I could never do. I've never been in a black limousine.
Those guys have.
The famous story, we'll get a little bit off track, is around that same time, a year later, when it was actually pretty cool. Actually, around that 81, 82, Mick and Ronnie had met Stevie Ray Vaughan, and then Stevie Ray Vaughan was the big hotshot guitar slinger from Texas and New York. David Bowie was in town with that Let's Dance album. And they're talking to Stevie, and they said that he came out of this hotel room, and waiting in the lobby out on the road was a black limousine, and David Bowie had paid for everything. The best liquor, the best cocaine, woman in the back, just, as they say, top shelf.
Well, you've probably let a cat out of the bag, and we may as well talk about it. Carl and I, obviously, the whole idea of this show, guys, is that it's going to be about clearly the Stones, and we'll continue that. But we want to branch off to talk about British blues, and we're going to have some shows where we're going to talk about some giant in British blues tradition, and Chicago blues, because obviously that links into the whole British blues, Rolling Stones. But also, if you're going to talk about the blues, you have to talk about Stevie Ray Vaughan, because he was such a giant for us all. And I take my hat off to Stevie Ray Vaughan, because he could have joined up on that Serious Moonlight tour. He could have been a guitar player and playing in front of millions of people, made millions of dollars, and he turned around and said no, and chose his band on a gamble that they were going to even sell 1 million records or even 500 records.
And that's a true story. He went from riding around in a black limousine around New York to saying, David Bowie, thanks but no thanks, going back to Texas, 100 degrees, riding around in the back of a van.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Tommy Shannon said, that showed you Stevie's character. And when you read the book, Chris Layton said the van leaked everything: brake fluid, motor oil, and transmission fluid. Different colors on the driveway.
Yeah.
Red, blue, and brown, and black.
And interesting though too how, and I don't know if this is fact. I've read it, but Mick Jagger sort of said, well, I don't really know if people really are going to listen to a blues band.
Yeah, well, Mick Jagger's always been very opinionated. He obviously dug Stevie Ray Vaughan. And I think we've got Keith to thank for Mick. Mick's always had a bit of a commercial tinge to him. There's always been a bit of is the word populist or wanting to be with the hip in crowd?
She's a hard woman to please. I thought about letting. Oh yeah, that album. Just listen. Yeah. Yeah.
Dog shit in the doorway.
But yeah. But I'll be looking forward to how we can and clearly Stevie Ray Vaughan is related to the Stones, because they checked them out. They were going to sign him to Rolling Stones Records, weren't they?
That I'm not aware of. I don't know.
Well, there was a hope. Was there a hope?
Good question. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I know that they really liked him. I think I have a picture. I have to dig it out next time.
Yeah.
I think you've seen it. It's Stevie and Mick Jagger in the same photo. An original photo. Pretty cool.
So they would have jammed together, surely.
Who knows?
Surely. Are you telling me that two guitar players would have just had a beer or shared a couple of jacks together and had a couple of cigarettes and, said, see you later, man?
No one knows. Just 1 second.
Yep. That's what I'm talking about, guys. A little bit beforehand earlier in the show. I wonder if these guys were in a recording studio when they were, or in a hotel room, and someone just recorded them.
I might have it here.
Cool.
Here we go. Pretty cool. You can see it? So wow. He went from that to back to that. But because people loved his character, he went on to that.
Yeah. But I'm going to probably finish the show with a theme that we've spoken about before. Stevie Ray Vaughan clearly understood what a band was. He went through how many versions of bands before he got to Tommy Shannon and Chris Layton, so he knew what it was to be in a band, and he wasn't going to give that up because they were a band.
And that's a saving grace of Mick and Keith too, their love-hate relationship, because that Tattoo You, apparently one of the reasons why they didn't have an album to tour behind was Mick and Keith weren't getting along well at that time either. And all through the 80s, they obviously squabbled. So Mick held it down when Keith was junked out, and then Keith held it down when Mick was going flying solo, being a pop star with Tina Turner and hair bands. And there's that famous clip where he's that's from the She's the Boss album. What's that song? What was his big hit from that album?
Give me just another kiss, just before the dawn breaks through.
Yeah. And it had a New York guy with a purple guitar with big fuzzy hair. You've seen it, eh? Was it live in
Sydney? And Mick had a mullet and he's wearing puffy pants.
Yes, right. Yeah, no good.
Yeah, and yeah. Oh, but we're fans, guys, so we can laugh about this, all right? Okay, we're not being critical. We're laughing because we're fans.
It actually strengthens the band, that sort of stuff, because they branch out and do their own stuff, and they always come back to what, like you said, being in a band. Like the prodigal son, you escape from your family, but you always come back.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course. Hey, I know that you said that you've got an appointment to go to, and it's pretty close to your appointment time. So, shall we sign off and look forward to spending another hour and a half or so together on Sunday, New Zealand time?
Yeah. No, I'm really happy that we managed to sneak in this one. Appreciate you holding it down while I was away, and remaining consistent. So, in conclusion, once again, nothing's planned. We went to review side one of Tattoo You, and we reviewed not only the album, but talked about some very interesting things.
So side two, Sunday.
Yes.
side two, and I'm going to do some homework. I'm going to check out some of the recordings of the bathroom reverb guy. I'm going to check that out, and I'm also going to check out whether or not how serious the Stones were, or what the relationship was with the Stones signing Stevie Ray.
And also don't be dig deep. You can find it. I just don't have the time. I will get the time again soon, but YouTube is just a wealth of knowledge, and sometimes, unfortunately, they get taken off. But there's a whole bunch of, not necessarily bootlegs, but outtakes of earlier versions of all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And with everything else going on in our lives, and in our music interest, and work and other commitments, we have to plan how we do that. And I certainly look at my YouTube time as serious musical research, and you come across some gems, and we're lucky enough for Walter to send us the link. And what I might do is I might send that link to that song. I might put that link on the bottom of this video if anyone else wants to check it out, because that was something I didn't know either. And that's one of the reasons why Carl and I started this, because we just want to learn, and there's a lot of stuff out there that we don't know, and a lot of stuff out there that we do know. And again, thank you to Sonia and everyone, Simon and Jimmy and everyone else, and Ben, for making positive comments, because that gives you the encouragement to go out there and do another show.
Yeah. I think I started watching YouTube in 2008. So here I am 10 years later, finally contributing something. So it's a little overdue.
Yeah, well, I remember going to a music shop and just having a look around. And I remember these young cats were in there, and they were talking about, oh, just check out YouTube, because there's this guy playing this riff. And I'm going, oh, what's YouTube? I thought like YouTube was a band. Check out YouTube.
Yeah.
And then found out, YouTube was this website that you went to. And then you went to the web, okay, and there were people on there posting videos of what they do.
It's I've just read some research. It is huge, YouTube now. It's massive. Google bought it, I think. And then I think Spotify is owned by Google or Facebook, Facebook bought Instagram, which is totally irrelevant, but just goes to show you that these particular websites, as much as we love them, are huge. They're a massive platform.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So Arvin's saying another good one. So thank you. And Sonia's saying very interesting conversation tonight. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing this. Appreciate that, Arvin. Appreciate that, Sonia. And Jimmy T, thanks, Carl and Andrew. Interesting stuff. But you guys are interesting too, because you guys always throw in answers and comments in the chat. So it's a team effort. Might sound like a cliche. It's a band effort.
All is one, and love is all, and all we love, all we are.
All right, peace and love. We'll check you guys out Sunday. I'll post a link a couple of hours before Carl and I go live. So check out that notification. Hopefully you guys will get it and you can join us.